Welcome to Subconscious Conversations, where we take a look into the intricate world of the subconscious mind and how to heal the body, mind, heart, and spirit through its wisdom and guidance. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Brielle, and I'm the sole practitioner at Springseed Wellness, where I practice the energy medicine techniques of emotion code, body code, and belief code, which were created by the wonderful Dr. Bradley Nelson. Today I'm going to tell the story about why I do this work. I got to meet Dr. Brad one time, and I was so impressed by how genuinely caring and humble he is. And I made a point to tell him that finding his work really helped me in my life. But I'm not sure that I told him that I believe it saved my life, and I certainly didn't get into any details. So, Dr. Brad, I hope by some stroke of luck you have a chance to listen to this episode so you know just how grateful I am to you and this amazing work. Now, this is a very difficult story for me to tell, and I've never told it publicly in this level of detail before, but I feel like it's important to share, although you are still getting an abridged version for time reasons. About 4 years ago, I was married to a man who was suffering a lot of mental, emotional, and alcohol abuse issues due to PTSD from his time in the military, as well as just all the harsh things that can happen throughout life. And he had tried antidepressants, but they either didn't help or would make him worse, and he refused to seek counseling. So I took it upon myself to try and help him in any way and every way I possibly could, and I did everything I could to steadfastly stand by the man that I had vowed the rest of my life to. But his demeanor had gotten to a point where I was afraid for my safety, and I had been for quite some time. However, I was also very worried for his safety because I knew that he had suffered with suicidal thoughts throughout the years. So still, I stayed. I felt like I was staying in an effort to save his life, but at the detriment of my own. But that all ended one night when he was intoxicated, angry, and afraid I was going to leave him. And in that bleak mental and emotional state, he pulled out a loaded gun and threatened to kill himself. I pleaded with him to put the gun down, and I tried to de-escalate the situation, but ultimately, terrified for my own life, I fled the house and went and stayed with a family member. And he spent the next week trying to convince me to come home and heal our marriage. And he promised me he wasn't drinking and promised me he wouldn't drink anymore. But I had heard all those empty promises time and time again. And I could tell after 16 years of being married to him that he was most likely still drinking. I could hear the subtle nuance changes in his voice between sober and not sober. And I really didn't want to give up on my marriage. There had been such deep love between us and so many wonderful times, and I was very concerned for his well-being as well. So I was facing an incredibly difficult decision. But I no longer felt safe, and I couldn't even imagine any way that I could ever feel safe with him again. So I held to my boundaries, and I told him I couldn't come home because I no longer felt safe. And I reassured him that I would still support him in any way that I could, and I would always be there for him, just from a distance. And to be honest, even though I was really worried about his reaction, it felt really good to finally stand up for myself and do the difficult things in order to protect myself. That's not my normal stance, so it felt good to be standing up for what I needed. But the next day, my whole life crumbled as I received the phone call that he had taken his own life. I think the entire apartment building where I was staying heard me screaming and crying. I no longer felt safe with this man, but I never wanted that result. Now, as you can probably imagine, this left me with so many terrible and conflicting emotions and thoughts and reactions. And there was a whole lot of other really cruel bullshit that happened as well, which just complicated everything. Plus the added stress and confusion of trying to take care of the business end of death, like all the paperwork, notifications, etc., etc. I don't know. I don't know how I got through it. I did not know which way was up. I just knew that everything felt like a constant swirling ball of chaotic darkness inside of me, and I could barely function. It took so much energy all the time just to hold myself together, and I felt like even if the wind blew in the wrong way, I was going to fall into pieces and never be able to come back from it. And I had already been seeing a counselor to help me with the crumbling of my marriage, and it was helpful, but I needed more help. And this was a situation where I had a limited number of visits with my counselor, and then I would have to be referred to someone else for more long-term therapy. So I was referred to someone who did EMDR because I had heard many other people say how much it helped them. But that ended up being a total disaster for me personally. I ended up feeling worse and worse every visit, and it was so hard for me to drive across town in the harsh winter and talk to a stranger about the worst things in my life on a specific schedule. I was in so much emotional distress, I couldn't even place what I was feeling, which meant I couldn't really even talk about it. It was just too many emotions at the same time, and I couldn't sort it all out. Sometimes it was really easy to talk to the people around me about what I was going through, and sometimes I could barely even speak. It was like being stuck on a never-ending roller coaster. So trying to open up on a specific schedule was not working for me. Plus, my insurance coverage for mental health is absolutely pathetic, so I was also surprised with an over $600 bill for treatment that made me feel worse. So I just stopped going. I talked to my doctor, who suggested that I consider antidepressants or long-term anti-anxiety medication. But I wasn't really open to that idea either because I was already on symptomatic anti-anxiety medications, and I wasn't certain about the implications of changing to long-term ones. And I've had enough bad experiences in the past with antidepressants that I particularly wasn't open to that. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that traditional mental health therapies and antidepressants are very vital treatments for a great number of people, and I am not trying to say anything bad about either one. But for me, in my particular situation, they weren't a good fit, and I knew it. But I wasn't really sure what else to do. And then it was suggested to me by a few people to try energy healing. And it's really funny to me that I didn't think about that sooner because my sister is a Reiki master and she had been doing a lot of work on me throughout this whole experience, and I always felt so much better afterwards. But in today's society, we're so focused on the cookie cutter solutions of therapy and drugs that other options seem less obvious. So anyway, I started looking into different modalities because really Reiki was the only thing that I had ever experienced before as far as, emotional energy healing goes. And I knew how helpful it was, and I wanted to see what else might be out there as well. I'm just curious like that, I guess. Or maybe it was fate. Either way, I ran into emotion code, body code, and belief code, and it just resonated so strongly with me. I just knew that this was what I needed. And sure enough, emotion code helped me sort through that huge ball of swirling emotional chaos inside of me. Body code has helped me alleviate a lot of the physical pains and ailments that were directly tied to those emotional issues and helped me clear up many, many other energetic interferences. And the belief code has really helped me get my head in a space where I don't self-sabotage as much, I don't tear myself down as much, and I have a much stronger relationship with myself and therefore with the others around me. Now, truthfully, I still have a long way to go on my healing journey. I still have a lot of physical pain that comes up anytime I feel a certain way or think of certain things. And I still have a boatload of anxiety issues. And I still have extremely critical negative self-talk and a ton of insecurities. But when I look back on how far I've come in such a short amount of time, it just blows my mind. I am able to function better as a human being now than I have been able to in a very long period of time, maybe even ever. And I'm also so much more confident than I have been since I was a little child. I'm doing things now that a year ago I never thought I would be able to do. This podcast, for instance. I went from being in a constant state of panic and feeling like I was on the verge of needing to be hospitalized because of all the mental, emotional, and physical issues I was dealing with, to feeling so hopeful and grateful and loving, grounded, and like I actually want to connect to the world and be a positive part of society. I went from popping Xanax like it was candy to having to take it once in the last year. And I honestly don't think that I would have been able to experience such a drastic turnaround in such a short amount of time without this work. So, Dr. Brad, from the bottom of my healing heart, I thank you so much for bringing this gift into the world. I truly feel like it saved my life, and I feel so blessed to now be able to utilize these skills to help others. Thank you so much for joining me today, and please join me next episode where I will be talking about consent and privacy. See you then. If you would like to set up a session with me to experience this work for yourself, please go to springseedwellness.com. If you would like to find a practitioner in your local area, please go to discoverhealing.com. And please always feel free to reach out with any questions or specific topics you would like me to address. See you next episode.